Welcome back to Secret Weapons, and today we're taking a look at the ALABS Pedal series. Taking a look at a new pedal company in the modern context is a really interesting thing. I can think back to 2014 to about 2017 or 2018, during an era where spin FV1 chips roamed the earth, and every 37 seconds a new pedal company was started by some guy in his garage with a tube screamer riff or a big muff with really fancy knobs. He would create about 35 of them and then kind of quietly close up shop, realizing that he was neither going to get rich fast nor win the market overnight. But it feels like those humble beginnings are something of a bygone era. And in the modern context, if you want to start a pedal company, or if you are an existing company like ALABS is, a brand out of Singapore from the last couple of years that kind of mostly trades in podcasting equipment on a budget via Amazon. You have to come out swinging with something somewhat substantial. We are well into the pedals arms race. We are well past the point of being able to just kind of like throw another big muff into the sea and hope that anyone cares. And regardless of your feelings on that said state of the industry, we are here today taking a look at the kind of first foray into pedals from ALABS. And it is really interesting. I wasn't totally sure what we were getting into here. I knew they were stereo. I knew they were all kind of various forms of wet effect: pitch, modulation, delay, and reverb. When they reached out to me to ask if I'd be interested in doing a video on them, they had kind of given me broad feature sets, but there were no manuals at that point. I really was going to have to kind of like get them into the studio and then decide whether or not I felt comfortable doing a video on them, having never heard anything from this company before. And I have to say, I'm surprisingly impressed, and there is both a caveat and a flat statement to kind of address there. The caveat is these pedals are all between like $90 and $110 on Amazon. They are incredibly affordable. I think at time of writing, I saw there was a little coupon on Amazon for another $10 off at least one or two of them. So if you like what you hear in this video, just know that these are like a hardcore budget option for somebody who needs, as you heard on that intro, huge stereo wet effects. And from there, I want to kind of jump into the uncaveated kind of point I want to make, which is they also just sound really good. The delay and the reverb have a great width to them. The modulation is interesting and versatile and has its high and low points, as most modulation pedals will, and especially most budget modulation pedals. But we also have that pitch pedal, and it's got mono in, stereo out, and it's got some really weird and interesting quirks to it. Does it track amazingly? Not necessarily. It has its moments and it has its kind of flubs, but I mean, if we're being really honest with ourselves, we hold in very high regard some boutique pedal manufacturers in our industry who make their bread and butter pitch, who are also not that good at it. We'll take a look at all four of these pedals in our sound samples, but just to throw kind of like my biased opinion right here at this point in the video, I think that if you're in the market for something like this, the reverb in this lineup is 100% worth taking a look at. If you're looking for something that does kind of like that washy ambient thing, there is an algorithm on that thing titled Cloudy, and it does feel like it is fully aping the Strymon sound, and it does it pretty well. That was our main reverb on that intro track with plate on the pan guitars, and the plate and that Cloudy sound are incredibly lush and incredibly cool sounding. The delay has reverse and some really interesting, highly affected things, and the modulation, pitch, and kind of all these things have some really weird kind of interactive quirks, things that kind of harken to gesture controls in the hologram stuff, or momentary pitch drops and that kind of thing in the pitch pedal. So we'll get into some of that stuff, but yeah. If you're in the market for some really interesting, very lush sounding stereo modulation pedals, ALABS, I think, might be worth you taking a look at. I'm actually going to include links to all four of them in the description down below on Amazon. Those fully are affiliate links that will help out my channel. So if you do click through and pick any of these up and use those links, just know it helps support this channel as well. This is not telling you to go buy them. Listen to the sound samples, decide for yourself. That is the purpose of this channel. But just know all of that at the outset if you do click on any of those links. Let's give a listen to these pedals. As always, before we get into our sound samples, let's go ahead and talk through our signal chain and the context we're working in. I am playing my Milkman St. Vincent Goldie into the Electronic Audio Experiments CItadel preamp, and then going into all 4 of the ALABS pedals: pitch, modulation, delay, and reverb. From there, we go out to our amplifier, which is the Milkman The Amp Stereo, a kind of 2-channel, like true stereo, very clean solid state platform. We're going into Universal Audio's Luna DAW with a Neve 1073 and mastering with ATR tape and Capital compressor. That's pretty much the entire signal chain. We're going to have the CItadel on because it just offers a little bit of like tone shaping and clarity. And that is our clean tone. So let's start things off with the Orbital pitch shifter. You basically have an octave down, up through an octave up. You have a detune with a speed control, your mix, your kind of 2-position glide and tone that kind of correspond to this switch right here, and our bypass. Let's just kind of mess around with it a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the weirder stuff that it does. We're already there. You heard that. As you can hear, some of the more complicated chords, you're going to get some weirdness. But I do appreciate that there's a tone control. I'm a big fan of a tone control for anything that pitches upwards. You have Unity right here, or as they call it, root. And let's use root to be the moment where we kind of like get into some of the other stuff. You have this detune, which will obviously create kind of like a chorusing warble effect. But because this is mono in, stereo out. Oh yeah. You basically just have like a stereo vibrato that sounds great at this point, which is really funny and cool. yeah, tracking's pretty good. Like I said, it's just when you get into those big chords, it gets a little bit wonky. But it does track as long as you pick through the chords, which is quite nice. And then, of course, like I said, you have some other weird stuff. Let's go to that octave down. Let's take that stereo craziness back out. In this up position, you have a glide control, and the glide control basically controls how quickly you jump from all the way down or all the way up back to unity, basically. At minimum, the jump from pitch shift to unity will be instant, and then the fallback will be gradual. That's a fun little quirk. And then obviously you can have it melt very slowly. Which can be cool in the octave up for kind of like record stops. Yeah. If you have the pedal bypass, as you heard earlier, you can still get it. It will actually jump from your unity as a momentary effect, which is kind of a cool thing that I haven't seen on a pitch pedal before. And of course, that glide is still in effect, so you can kind of have it be immediate. Yeah, it's quirky and bizarre. So let's take that opportunity to jump next over to our Novadrift modulation device, which is going to forego that weird glide control in favor of an X factor, which is basically going to be a third parameter alongside rate and depth. Things like duty for the tremolo and feedback kind of like build up for things like your flanger. You have a tone control, and then you have a little infinite sign on this like you do with this one, and basically across the board. It is effectively saving the last 5 seconds of knob movements as you're holding the button. Let's start with vibe. Good stereo is good stereo, man. There's no getting around it. As you can hear, that tone control can kind of brighten or darken up your chorus. Which can be great for those kind of like warm, warped vinyl-y choruses versus those 80s shimmery choruses. In this up position, not only do you have access to, like I said, that third parameter for customizing a modulation engine, but you also have the ability to press and hold and enter into a tap tempo, which is quite nice. Tone control on a rotary. It's essential to make me like rotary. Let's jump to this tremolo. Crank that depth up. So let's take a look at this kind of like infinity thing, which they call curves. Basically, you can put the foot switch in the down position on any of these pedals, press and hold until it turns purple, and then you have 5 seconds of flashing light to kind of like adjust whatever parameters you want. And then it will go back to normal. And then you can kind of like press and hold to recall that kind of set of changes that you have made. And at any time, you can kind of overwrite those or clear them out by pressing and holding, flipping that switch back up to tap. It will turn green, and it will clear the kind of like stored memory. So you can kind of like write new patterns onto it. Let's go ahead and jump over to this delay pedal. Once again, you've got a top position for press and hold for your tap tempo. And then you have your bottom position, which will do some of those same crazy gesture controls and everything. You've got a bunch of great sounding delays. Let's start things off where one should always start off with our tape delay. And you'll notice right off the bat, let's go modulation at minimum. You're going to have a kind of similar relationship to modulation and stereo width as a lot of pedals implement. very kind of subtly drifty with modulation at minimum, which is something I really like. And the further up you crank it, the wider it gets. What I like is, at minimum, you still get some drift, which I think is really important. I feel like there's no getting around that. That's a very good sounding analog delay. And you have a cool granular effect, which is pretty rad. And an octave that I like a weirdly high amount. And I think that's because it doesn't do the runaway regeneration thing. It's just one octave, which is all I ever want anyways. And then a dampened delay attack, a swell. And last but not least, let's jump over to this reverb pedal, the Cetus, or however that's pronounced. Let's go ahead and grab that cloudy algorithm, because like I said, it's going to be, you'll hear it. I always wish these kinds of things had the ability to apply the swell to the dry signal without going full wet. Because of course there's a freeze. Yeah, I could get kind of distracted doing that. That seems like a thing that I just did. Church sounds good. And a nice gentle haul to round things out. And round things out with one more absolutely hilariously massive piece of ambience.